Hi, for this video, I am going to go over how you start a flight plan up for the aircraft. So we're going to be using this little flight computer right here in order to tell the aircraft where we're going to be flying. I also would like to mention something. In the last video I did, unfortunately, after I recorded it, I realized that it wasn't picking up the audio from my flight simulator here. It's going to be the same in this case. It's not really necessary for this video because we're not going to be hearing much. But for the last video, there was some warning systems that I tested in the airplane, and I realized that they weren't able to be heard. So I apologize for that, but it's not really that important, so that's why I did not re-record a new video. The video was mostly just to tell you how to start the entire aircraft. So anyway, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and go over how you start a flight plan up for this aircraft. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to go into a program here called SimBrief, which allows us to create a flight plan by putting the following information. So we're going to put in our airline. So right now we're in an American Airlines MD-80, as you can see here. So we're going to go ahead and then set our flight number. We'll just pick something random. I'll just do that. We're going to be departing Medford International Airport, so KMFR, and we're going to be departing we're arriving at KONP, Newport Municipal, and our alternate airport in case we need to divert from ONP to SEA is Seattle here. Oh, whoops, oh great, I just messed it up. Let me go back and I'll just re-put the information really quick. Hit the wrong button there. Yep, and depart MFR. ONP. All right, perfect. Now we're going to choose the aircraft that we're flying in, which is a McDonnell Douglas MD-82, which I just saw it. There we go. MD-82. All right. After that, we're going to put in the amount of passengers that we have on board today, and that is 104. We're carrying, I need to make sure this is set to pounds. We are currently carrying 2 tons of cargo, so 4,000 pounds. And we are taking off runway 32, and we're going to be landing 16. I don't want to use the other runway because it doesn't have ILS. So next we're going to set the amount of extra fuel. We're going to do 1 ton of extra fuel, so 2,000 pounds. Gives about an hour of fuel. All right. Now that we are done with that, we can go ahead and have this software. It'll generate a flight plan based on all the information we've put in here. So we're going to generate flight. All right, now that we've done that, you can go ahead and see it shows us our departure and our flight plan all the way to ONP here. And then it shows you also in this dotted line your alternate flight plan to, in this case, Seattle. So we're going to go ahead and put in the flight plan and do some initial information. So the cruising altitude is 260. So we're going to go ahead and go up to the MCP or control panel here. And we're going to set the cruising altitude to 260. One thing to point out is that the cruising altitude is relative to whether going east or west. So aircraft flying east will fly at, oh man, it's been so long. If I remember correctly, if you're going east, it's an odd number, and if you're going west, it is, well, no, sorry, I think east is positive, west is an odd number. There you go. It's one of the two, but they do that to make sure the aircraft going in these different directions are at different flight levels to avoid collisions. It's how they control the traffic, essentially. So we're at 260, 26,000 feet. And the next thing we're going to do here is we are going to see what our block fuel, so the total amount of fuel on board is going to be 16,722 pounds. Which, obviously, I already have the aircraft running because the purpose of the video is just to show you how to set up the flight plan into the flight management computer here. So we're not going to be dealing with actually putting weight on the aircraft right now. All right, so next thing you get is this OFP here, which shows you all the information relating to your flight, including weather at Newport, weather in Medford, other NOTAMs. NOTAM stands for Notice to All Airmen, for example, runway conditions and etc. All the information you need for the flight. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to put in the initial flight plan first. And so we're going to do that right here. So our route, we have our route and our alternate route. Obviously, we're not putting in our alternate route because we don't need to divert. So we're taking the JKSN1 departure, which is a SID, is what it's called. A SID stands for Standard Instrument Departure, and it's basically a flight path that you follow away from the originating airport. Then we're going to go direct to OED VOR. A VOR is a radio beacon that the aircraft fly towards. And then from there to ONP. Now, it didn't give us some of the information. I'm also going to change some of it. I don't usually use the JKSN1 departure because in the simulator, for some reason, it doesn't load it in properly. So we're going to be doing the Brute 7 departure instead of the JKSN1 or Jenkins 1. And then it didn't give us a arrival or approach. So I'm going to go ahead and put one in today. So initially what we're going to do is we're going to go to position. We are starting at KM, F, where's F here? FR, RRR, which is Kilo Mike Foxtrot Romeo in the phonetic alphabet. Right, so that gives us our GPS position. So we're going to take our GPS position and we're going to put it in this box here. This is now telling the aircraft where it is physically located on the planet. And from here, we're going to go to route. All right, so you see is our origin airport's KMFR. We're going to put in our destination, which is Kilo Oscar November Papa. And we're going to put that in there. And we're also going to put in our departing runway, which is 32. And if you put a company route, after you fill the flight plan and if you save it and then you type in the name of the company route, it can completely load a flight plan that you did previously. So that way you don't have to put all this information in again. But we're not going to do that for today, but it's not necessary. All right, so if you remember correctly, it said the only waypoint, in this case, is not a GPS waypoint, it's a physical ground beacon, is OED. So we're going to take OED, and we're going to go direct to OED. And this page comes up because there are many different OED VORs in the area, and so you want to make sure you're using the right one. So the correct one is going to be the top one, because it's the closest to us. Oh, I didn't actually do it properly. It's supposed to be OED. OED. There we. Okay, so it's actually not, okay. Oh no, it's got it right. I got confused. Sorry about that. So now we have that put in. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the departure and arrival page. So we're going to select our departure, which is the Brute 7 standard instrument departure, and we're going to use the Capo transition. Next, we're going to select the runway we're going to be departing off of, which is 32. And now we're going to go to the arrival page. We're going to select arrival ILS into runway 16. And there's no star, but we are going to use the Cuttle transition. There we go. So now we're going to go ahead and go to route. We're going to hit activate. Now we're going to click execute. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the legs page, which shows you all of your waypoints. We're going to make sure these are all in order. All right, so we have a little bit of a discontinuity, so we're going to get rid of that. Going to place a waypoint over the discontinuity. There we go. So now we have the flight plan set up. And I went ahead and got rid of OED because for some reason it didn't want to let me use that VOR beacon, probably because I haven't updated the nav data for the flight computer here, so it probably doesn't even know it exists, or something else funky's going on. Anyway, now that that is set up, we're going to go and physically look at the flight plan on our HSI or heading indication screen here. So we're going to set it to the plan mode, and we're going to zoom right down, and we're going to go all the way to the beginning here. So as you can see, we take off to a right turn. We go to this GPS position, 1735. Then from there, we go to INTC. And then from INTC, it brings us straight to Brute, which is this star here. From Brute to Lengths, which is here. Lengths to Jaden, which is here. Then etc. So all of that is correct. So the departure is properly put in. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to basically what's called a step. So we're going to step through it to make sure all this is correct. So we just checked all these waypoints are correct. Now let's check the arrival waypoints. So we start going off to Cuddle, which is correct. Cuddle to Boiler, Boiler to Burrs, and then Burrs direct into the runway. And then after the runway, the reason why you see this weird loop that then goes to the circle is that's the missed approach procedure. So if, for example, you need to do a go around, meaning your approach down to the runway was unstable or some other phenomena happened, and you need to go around, they put you into a holding pattern until they can deal with you later. And the holding pattern is this little like oval looking here. So you can see the missed approach waypoints, which is the right after the runway here. See, it says hold at Burrs, which is the missed approach or the holding pattern. All right, so that's all of that information done. Next, what we can go ahead and do is we can go to the route page and we can click on Perf Initiate. So this is where you put in the weight and balance of the aircraft. So we'd take the fuel scheduled, which is 16. Let's go back to the page so you can remember. 16722. 722, and we're going to put the fuel scheduled up here. Oh, sorry, I forgot. You have to do 16722, and then you have to put the burn rate. We're going to do a burn rate of N. I won't go over explaining that because it's a little complicated what that means, but you can choose a burn rate of A or N. It's basically how fast the aircraft's going to burn the fuel. Anyway, put that in. So now it knows the amount of fuel on board, how many pounds of fuel. We're also going to put the gross weight in, which is 53600. 53600. Then we're going to put in our amount of reserve fuel, which is 1 ton. And our cost index, which is basically tells the aircraft how much thrust it can use, how much fuel we can burn on the flight. A lower cost index makes the aircraft burn less fuel, and a higher cost index allows the aircraft to burn a higher rate of fuel, or higher amount of fuel, basically. The cost index will change depending on the type of departure. So for example, if you're doing a departure which requires a really high performance climb out, you'd be operating under a higher cost index. So our cruise altitude is going to be 260. We're going to put that up there. Next in here, we could get the cruise wind, which is, I think it's going to be 260. Actually, I can check. You won't be able to see this because right now I'm only streaming a certain portion of my screen, but I can check what the current winds are at the altitude. So it's going to be, no, it's 233 at, what does it say? 23 at 22. There we go. All right, so that basically is the winds that we're going to be experiencing at cruising altitude. Now we're going to be doing what's called the ISA deviation. So what this is that right now the temperature at ground level may be, excuse the airplane that seems to be having a little bit of an issue over there, but the current temperature is 23 degrees Celsius. That's about 71 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So as you climb in altitude, the temperature is going to change because of the surrounding pressure. Where you have less air, the temperature is going to be different. And so the ISA deviation is where you put in the how many degrees of deviation the temperature will be relative to ground level. And if we look on the OFP here, we can go ahead and look at what the ISA deviation is, and it says ISA deviation of +8. So it's going to be +8 degrees. And this all will change relative to the pressure and temperature, etc. All this stuff changes. So we're going to do its +8 ISA deviation. All right, and which means we're going to have a, once we get to our top of climb, it's going to be -29 Celsius. Then you'll see this thing says transition altitude. The transition altitude, basically in North America, the highest land mass is 18,000 feet. So the transition altitude would be 18,000, which means you'd be above the highest landmass. Transition altitude is also when the aircraft goes to a standard altimeter setting, which I talked about what altimeter settings are for in the last video. And the standard altimeter setting is 29902. Next, we're going to go to the takeoff page, and we're going to calculate our V speeds. So a V speed, which right here you see we have V1, VR, and V2. So V1 is the speed at which the aircraft is able to decelerate on the runway and still have enough runway in the case of an engine failure. VR is the speed at which the aircraft will begin to rotate or lift the nose up in order to take off. It's the speed at which the aircraft has sufficient lift to take off. V2 is the speed that the aircraft needs to climb out at in the event of an engine failure directly after takeoff. And the way we calculate that is in here. So we go to weight and balance. Sorry, not weight and balance. You go to performance. And so we'd put in the airport, KMFR. So now it knows the length of the runway. We're going to be taking off 3-2. The winds, I'm going to check the actual METAR data for Medford, the live weather, which the winds are 300 at 7 knots. So we're going to do 300 slash 7, or 07, sorry. Next, the outside air temperature, as we said earlier, was 23 degrees Celsius. Packs off, we're going to have packs on takeoff. And the QNH is 1020. 1020. All right, now that that's done, we're going to click Calculate. And as you can see, our V1 is 148, so we're going to go ahead and put 148. Our VR is 151. 151. And our V2 is 160. All right, there we go. That's all put in. And then you have other things such as V-flap, and we have flaps need to be up by 165. Slats, which are the leading edge devices here, which slide down to increase lift. Slats need to be up at 205 knots, etc. VREF also is the landing speed, but we don't need that right now, obviously. So now that we've calculated all of that, we put that into the computer here, and we are done with that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our climb page, make sure everything's set properly. So it shows you the speed the aircraft's going to travel at, which is 295 knots indicated airspeed, and then it's in real life, the aircraft has to be below or at 250 knots below 10,000 feet. And because of that, the computer here knows that, and so it basically tells the aircraft, hey, look, we can only be going this speed below 10,000. Once you get past that restriction, it will go up to 295. Now we can go to the cruise page. So we're going to be cruising at 288, and we're going to be descending to 285, and below 10,000, slowing to 240, which is our decel point. And you can see it shows the altitude restriction for different waypoints at the top right here. I see a boiler, we need to be at or above 2600. All right, so that's everything done. Oh, another thing that I'm not going to do here because it's not necessary is this is the engine out page. You basically be setting what the speed needs to be if you lose an engine, etc., and also the altitude to stay at if you lose an engine. So we don't need to do that. Anywho, that should be the entire flight plan done. Now what we do is we go to the route page. We already got everything set here. We already checked the legs page, everything's set. Set the departure. Performance page set. That is an entire flight plan. Completely put in, give or take a few little details of things that I'm still learning, and etc. So that is pretty much the entire flight plan done. I hope you enjoyed watching. Try to make it as short as possible. It's just a lot of information to cram into a video. And that'll be all. So farewell.